Well, welcome to the party, y'all. Welcome. Woo! Party time. Um, we're continuing this journey as we move deeper and deeper into getting ourselves ready for middle school math. And today we're going to talk about converting units of measurement. This is something I think a lot of us actually kind of know. That's the cool thing about this is I think we're realizing we actually know how to do all this math. It's just we're putting it all together now. It's like that's kind of what middle school is. We know how to multiply, we know how to divide, we know how to add, and we know how to subtract numbers. What's starting to happen is we're putting them together. And today we're going to talk about units of measurement. If you recall and remember from even science, that idea of measurement, right? That could be things like distance, it could be weight. Um, what else? I feel like there's probably more, but let's just start with that, right? So, like things that we measure, we do so in terms of distance and weight and other forms of measurement that for some reason I can't seem to think about right now. Um, Oh yeah, I was gonna say like length, but that's kind of distance. Yeah, size, whatever. Anyway, I don't know why I'm still talking about that. Let's refocus on what we're talking about here today, because what we're gonna be thinking about is how do we understand how to change units of measurement? And today we're actually gonna just focus on 4 units of measurement, and those are all in terms of distance. We're gonna be talking today about inches. We're gonna talk about feet. Again, the measurement, not the things at the bottom of your legs. I lost track. Oh, yards. And we're going to talk about miles. And these are all ways that we do measure distance. And what we mean by converting units of measurements is like making sense of things like, oh, well, if I had 3 feet, well, how many inches is that? If I had 6.5 yards, how many feet is that? Or how many feet is it if I have 6 miles? So that's the kind of thing we're going to be looking at today. Now, don't worry, because one thing is we're going to make sure we know what they are, like what these unit ratios are for these units of measurement, as well as think about what is a 3-step process that can help us solve that. So let's kind of dive in with that now and like make sense. So one thing we're learning, right, we're going to talk today is one of the ones we talked about was feet, right? And one thing that we know about a feet is that 1 foot, that's when we call it a single one, is equal to 12 inches. Okay, so if I have a foot, that's 12 inches. And that's actually what a ruler is. Right? We have those rulers or straight edges, whatever you want to call them. That actually is 12 inches long, or the equivalent of 1 foot. Okay, the other unit of measurement we can look at today would be yards. So 1 yard is the equivalent of 3 feet. So it takes 3 feet to make 1 yard. And those are actually those yardsticks or meter sticks that you see, the longer rulers that you've used. Some of you use those to make a giant 3-dimensional prism when you studied volume. So 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. What else did we say we were going to talk about today? Oh, miles, right? So the other one is 1 mile. And 1 mile is equivalent to 5,280. I had to like stop and think about that. 5,280 feet. So a mile is really big because look at all those feet that go in there. And a mile is also then 1/3 of those feet in terms of a yard. So that would be 1,760 yards is also 1 mile. Okay. So these are things we're going to know. And we'll, again, this is the whole cool part about taking notes and having this. You're not expected to always remember this. Like you could even tell there, I had to like stop and think about a few of them for a second. But it is important to be able to write them down on a piece of paper, have them in your notes, and then you can always go back and look at them. In fact, we're going to keep this page right here, and I'll probably be flipping back and forth with those today as we go. So now what, right? Great. Now we know this. What does that even mean? So let's talk about where this comes across in a problem. So one of the first things we might see is just a general beginning where it might say, okay, well, listen, if I have 5 feet I want to know, well, how many inches do I have, right? So that's the conversion. If we're going to change all the feet into inches, right? We're going to substitute it, if you will. That helps you think about the skill that we're doing. So there's a process to this, okay? The first step is what I like to call make the one to many. This will make sense as we go, okay? And then once we've done the one to many, right, we are going to note the rule and solve, okay? Now that will make sense. There's the whole thing about these steps is they only make sense once we put them to practice. So let's go ahead and put this to practice. So the first thing that I mean by this step here, the one to many, is this. I like to make a T-chart. And this helps me organize my thinking. And I'm not worried about the numbers yet. I'm only going to worry about what I know here. And what I know is I have feet and I have inches. And what I want to do is think about what is the one unit to the many other? Is it like 1 foot that equals lots of different inches, or is it 1 inch that equals lots of different feet? And that's hard to remember, which is why I can always go back to my thing here and say, oh, well, here, 1 foot is 12 inches. So the one to many is that when I have 1 foot, I have 12 inches. So I'm going to write that in. When I have 1 foot, I have 12 inches. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, and this is the part that helps me with noting the rule, is I'm going to put in what I know. I don't know inches, right? So this is like my unknown. Oh, what? Let's make that a variable. Let's call it I for inches. But I do have 5 feet, so I'm going to put 5 here. Okay. So now let's look at what we have. What we realize here is that we are starting with feet and we want inches. So if I go up to my one to many, I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm starting with 1 and I'm going to 12. Well, okay, well, then what's my rule? Right? I know I'm getting bigger, right? I know I'm getting bigger. And so that means I need to be multiplying because I'm doing units here. 1 foot, 12 inches. If I had 2 feet, I'd have 24 inches. So I realize what's happening here is if I take my feet and I multiply it by 12, I'm going to get my inches. So now let's solve. Right now that I know that my rule is feet times 12 equals inches, well, I'm going to do some substitution. I have feet times 12 equals inches. I need to know inches. I do know feet, so I can substitute. So I'm going to take this F away and I'm going to replace it with a 5. And then I'm going to do the math. So 5 times 12. Oh, well, that equals 60. Oops. Equals 60. Wrong button. Sorry. You probably didn't notice. That equals 60. So there's my answer. 5 feet is the same thing as 60 inches. So there we have it. 5 feet is equivalent to 60 inches. We did that by doing the one to many, noting the rule, right? Using this T-chart and then solving. So let's keep playing with this skill. So let's go to another example, right? And I know just one doesn't always make it. So if you're still like, what are we talking about? Don't worry. But let's write down the steps again. So first we're going to do one to many. Okay. Then we're going to find our rule. And then we'll just solve. Just like it's that simple. It's not. It takes work and that's okay. So let's see here. Let's go with this example. Let's say now someone says, all right, well, if you have 3 feet, how many yards are you going to have? Right. You know what? Let's mix this up. Now that I think about it. Let's get here with this. I'm gonna reverse it. Let's say we have 21 yards. And then how many feet? Okay, let's do it that way. Let's see what comes about that. Okay, sorry, zoned out. Wow, it must be Friday. Okay, so 21 yards equals blank feet. So let's go back to what we need to do. Step one, I'm going to make a T-chart. And over here I have yards. And over here I have feet. Okay. Okay, so right, we're like thinking about what is our one to many in this case. So I'm going to go back to our chart. Wait, what are we doing again? Yards to feet. Okay, so we want to look like what is the one to the many? Is it 1 foot equals many yards, or is it 1 yard equals many feet? And we can see here, actually, it's 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. 1 yard equals 3 feet. So if we go back to our T-chart, again, we can do the one to many. 1 yard, 3 feet. Okay, so again, we now want to take and fill in what we have. This is what's going to help us with finding the rule. So I'm going to go ahead and say, well, we know we have 21 yards and what we need is feet. So that means I'm starting with yards, I'm going to feet. So I'm getting bigger. So again, this has to be a multiplication rule. So I'm going to come over here and rule, right? It has to be a multiplication rule. I'm getting myself into a larger, from 0 or from 1 to 3, that allows me to get larger. So that has to be a multiplication. So what's happening is I have to take my yards, and if I multiply it by 3, I'll get my feet, right? And that's the cool thing about when you have that first one to many is you'll see, well, your rule is really right here, right? Because you're always starting with 1. So 1 times something, or it could be that actually, well, yeah, you're always starting with 1. Let's just keep it at that. Sorry. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. You know that. You've watched enough of these videos. Okay. So if now we think about how to solve that, we're going to take what we know and just substitute into our formula, right? So we know yards. So we actually have 21 times 3, and that's going to be equal to F for my feet. So if I do that math here, let's see, 20 times 3 is 60, and 3 times 1 is 3. So that's 63. So that means I would have 63 feet. Okay, so again, I know that this is, it's always like rush through it. Hey, what's going on? Don't worry. Let's take a look at the next piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this one around real quick. We're going to do 2 more and then we'll move forward. I'm going to try to do that quickly so this video doesn't go on forever. But let's look at it the other way around. Like, what if actually this time someone said to us, okay, well, you know what? If you have 33 feet, how many yards would you have? Okay, so again, it's the same steps. We want to do the one to many. Okay, and then we want to find our rule. And then, oh, that handwriting, sorry. And then we're just going to solve. So I'm going to go back to building that T-chart. And, you know, you can do it however you want. I kind of like starting with the feet here. So I'm going to call feet. I'll call this yards. But again, I got to find the one to many. And we did this last time. What we actually realized is 1 yard is 3 feet. 1 yard is 3 feet. So if I put that in my T-chart, that actually means the 1's here, the 3's here, which is fine. That's still the one to many. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So now if we're going to find our rule, let's plug in the information we know. We know feet, we have 33. What we need to figure out is yards. We don't know that. That's the question mark. So this time, what's going to help me is I'm starting with feet. If we think about solving it, I'm starting with feet and I'm going to yards. So I started at 3. Okay, so I'm starting at feet and I'm ending with yards. Well, what we notice is that if I start at 3 and I go to 1, I'm actually getting smaller. So that means I have to be dividing. And again, if I look at that, 3 divided by 3 equals 1. So my rule states if I take my feet, divide it by 3, I'm going to get my yards. So now let's just solve that. Right? Let's plug in. Well, again, I know feet. So instead of F, I'm going to have 33. The rule stays the same. It's divided by 3, and that's going to equal Y, which is what I'm looking for right here. So 33 divided by 3, well, that's 11. So you can see here that with this skill, when we do these steps, we really, with converting units of measurement, we are only ever multiplying or dividing because they are unit measurements. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. So I'm gonna go on to this next one. We're gonna finalize this one and move on from there. Okay. And this one, all I want to show is that sometimes it gets a little more complex. In fact, what we're gonna say is we have 15 yards and 6 feet. And we want to know how many feet that is. You're going to see this. This is often something that can be tricky where they kind of mix them up a little bit. Now, the steps aren't going to change. We're still going to find our one to many. And then we are going to find our rule. And then we're just going to solve. Right. So again, I'm going to set up a T-chart. It's the best way to think about it. Since the yards is the first one I see here, I'm going to put in yards. And I'm going to feet. Okay, and I'm just going to start here, but I need my one to many. And again, now I know this after doing 2 problems in a row. I know that 1 yard is 3 feet. So I already can see with my rule, if I take my yards and I multiply by 3, I will get my feet. All right, there's my rule. So let's plug in what we know. I know I have 15 yards. I'm not going to worry about this 6 feet yet. I'm just going to focus on this part here. So I have 15 yards. And I need to know how many feet is that? Well, according to my rule, I can just plug and play, right? So I'm going to say down here, Y for yards. So in place of that, I'm going to write 15. This rule stays the same. So 15 times 3, that equals 45. So if I have 15 yards, I have 45 feet. So I have 45 feet with this part, and then an additional 6 feet. And I don't need to convert that because it wants feet, and these are feet. So to get my final answer, I'm just going to take 45 plus 6, and that's going to get me to 51. And that would be how we do this. 51. I don't know why I had to write it like that. Sorry, 51 feet. Okay, so this is the work we're doing. We're going to just follow those steps. It will make sense with practice. So don't worry, don't panic. Everything's fine. That is just the job we're going to be thinking about. Trial and error, follow the steps, know your units of measurement, know that one to many, write them down, constantly understand and practice that like 1 foot equals 12 inches, right? 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. And again, maybe 1 mile, that's that one, 5,280 feet. So keep up the good work, and we will catch you at the next video.